NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. U.S. Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff will lead a delegation to Egypt to join Gaza ceasefire and hostage talks, according to Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati, as Qatar's Prime Minister and Turkish delegates will also participate in the third day of negotiations on the indirect talks between Hamas and Israeli representatives. Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg has claimed that she was kidnapped and tortured by Israeli forces after being detained with 478 others from the global Smooth flotilla, which attempted to deliver aid to Gaza, according to statements made at a press conference. Meanwhile, according to UN reports, Israeli shelling in Gaza continues, despite U.S. calls for a pause during ongoing ceasefire negotiations in Qatar. Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed on his 73rd birthday that Russian forces have captured nearly 5,000 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in 2025, while a top Russian commander said troops are advancing in all directions. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the claims and pointed to gains in Donetsk. A Ukrainian drone strike has caused a temporary blackout in Russian-occupied parts of the Zaporizhzhia region, but power has been fully restored now, according to Russian-installed Governor Yevgeny Ballistic in a separate statement. Kherson's Russian-appointed Governor Vladimir Saldo has said about 38,000 people in his region were also without electricity, though no direct link to the Zaporizhzhia outage was specified. By orders under President Donald Trump, 200 Texas National Guard troops have now arrived in Illinois for a 60-day deployment of Chicago. To Chicago, sparking outrage from Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker, the deployment has been legally challenged by Illinois officials, with a federal judge set to hold a full hearing on Thursday. Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa has survived an apparent gun and stone attack on his motorcade while opening a water treatment plant in central Ecuador, as reported by his environmental minister Ines Manzano, who has confirmed bullet marks on his vehicle. The assault involved a crowd of 500 protesters amid escalating unrest over diesel price hikes. 2 bodies were recovered and 2 people remain missing after a 60-story building under construction collapsed near Plaza Mayor in central Madrid, Spain. According to Spanish authorities, officials including Madrid Mayor José Luis Martínez Almeida has confirmed the incident caused multiple floors to fall into the basement. Taiwan has reappointed former Economy Minister Lin Hsini as its envoy to this year's APEC summit in South Korea, marking his second consecutive year representing Taiwan in the key international forum. Lin, who also led Taiwan's delegation in 2005, will attend under the name Chinese Taipei due to China's political objections. Now we start from Russia and Ukraine. According to a Russian news agency, Russia's air defense units have destroyed 53 Ukrainian drones overnight. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that deep strikes on Russia in retaliation for Moscow's offensive will not help Ukraine. Let's listen in.
Противник, несмотря на попытки упорного сопротивления, отступает по всей линии боевого соприкосновения. И на этом фоне киевский режим, стремясь продемонстрировать своим западным спонсорам хоть какие-то успехи, пытается наносить удары вглубь российской территории по абсолютно мирным объектам. Это ему не поможет. В настоящее время стратегическая инициатива полностью остается за вооруженными силами Российской Федерации. В этом году нами освобождено почти 5000 квадратных километров территории, 4900 и 212 населенных пунктов.
Moreover, the Russian Defense Ministry has announced the capture of 2 additional villages and stated that Russian troops are advancing in nearly all directions, particularly towards key Donetsk cities. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reported that Russia is using oil tankers from its shadow fleet. Let's listen in.
Детально очільник зовнішньої розвідки доповів по тому, як росіяни використовують танкери свого тіньового флоту, і не лише для фінансування війни, але й для диверсій та різної дестабілізації в Європі. Нещодавні випадки запуску дронів з танкерів – це один з таких прикладів. Наявну у нас інформацію ми передаємо партнерам, і важливо, щоб були відчутні кроки партнерів у відповідь Росії. На всіх рівнях заради цього ми працюємо. І будуть ще зустрічі, будуть перемовини з нашими партнерами, публічні і непублічні. Переконуємо, що треба не економити на рішучості. Росіяни повинні знати, що жодну їхню деструктивну активність, все підле, що вони роблять, світ без відповіді.
Ukraine's 63rd Mechanized Brigade has reported the capture of an Indian national who had been serving with Russian forces. The individual has been identified as 22-year-old Majoti Sahil Muhammad Hussain, a student from Morbi in Gujarat. The Ukrainian brigade has also stated that the captured Indian youth was previously arrested in Russia on drug-related charges and faced a 7-year prison sentence. But he was then given an option to sign a contract with the Russian military and evade his sentence. Moreover, Ukrainian military sources have added that Hussein has received 16 days of training before being deployed to the front lines in Donetsk in October 1st. He then spent 3 days in combat before surrendering to the Ukrainian troops. A video has been recently released by Ukrainian forces that shows the Indian youth explaining his circumstances and stating that he has never received the financial compensation promised by Russia. Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed it is in the process of verifying the details surrounding his case. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Punchara Amarasinghe. Kotalawala Defense University joins us live from Colombo. Thank you very much, Dr. Amarasinghe, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at the attacks first, what are the potential consequences of Ukrainian claims that Russia is using oil tankers from its shadow fleet, and how might this impact the further sanctions or trade with Russia and Ukraine?
I think it's quite evident that war has come to a level of multi-domain escalations, contrary to how it began 2 years ago. So if you look at, if you seriously examine what is going on in the Russian-Ukrainian war front, it is quite evident the Russians are claiming that they have captured 5,000 kilometers within 2025, which is a critical and remarkable achievement from the Russian perspective. But against all odds, the Ukrainians have penetrated deeper into the Russian terrain, right? So they have opted for the indirect approach propounded by Sir Basil Needleheart, the famous military theorist, by attacking the Russian suburbs, by attacking the gas reserves of deeper terrains like in Siberia. And also they have opted for clandestine operations by assassinating top Russian generals, which has added one more brick to the Russian machinery. So as for the question that you raised, so this is kind of a tits for tats game going on between Ukraine and Russia. So from my point of view, against all the odds, against all these defensive techniques embraced by the Ukrainians, right? With the support from the Western allies, the Russian army is still making a remarkable progress, and it moves ahead. So which is going to be quite a critical time for the Ukrainians in the days to come. You talked about the sanctions. Of course, the Russia has been imposed by dozens of sanctions since the inception of the war, but still the Russian war machinery has not been completely debilitated. So recently, Vladimir Putin clearly claimed that if Zelensky's government in Kiev is trying to get the Tomahawk missiles from the Americans, there would be severe repercussions. So I think we are too early to make any judgment about the final outcome of this great uncanny game.
And do you think we can still be hopeful about the U.S. leading ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, for that, I think my answer is quite ambivalent, because whatever the proposals initiated by Trump were not reciprocated by both sides, and we can entirely blame Russians, and even the Ukrainians were not very much willing to go ahead with the proposals as it indicated. But I think, if Donald Trump is going to push further and further, and if the entire European Union and if the entire North America are trying to hamper Russian economy, the imposition of the sanctions are going to be worked out. There can be, of course, certain consequences inwardly. But, it could have been easily achieved if Trump did not come to power. Under the Biden's administration, this problem would have been simply resolved through an array of sanctions, but now we have completely different games, different dynamics in the world politics. So I can't exactly predict to which extent the idea of the ceasefire agreement would be feasible in terms of the Russia-Ukrainian conflict.
And now looking at the news coming in from Ukraine about the student that was captured in the front lines alongside Russian troops, the Indian national, what are the potential diplomatic implications for India and Ukraine as well as Russia following this capture of Indian citizens, especially regarding his recruitment by Russian forces?
I think you need to understand, simply speaking, this Indian national was not the first one to be arrested by the Ukrainian authorities with South Asian background. And if you just go through the statistics, for past 2 years, dozens of Indians, Nepalis, and even Sri Lankans were captured by both sides. Some of them, the South Asians were working for both Ukraine and Russians, based on ideological convictions, based on financial constraints, and so on and so on. So if you simply look at the status of the Indian man, I don't find that would lead to any diplomatic implications, because in international law, the role of the mercenary soldier stands absolutely a gray area, which is quite ambivalent, because Geneva Conventions do not provide adequate protection for the mercenary soldiers. Even under the Geneva Conventions, it is clearly indicated that if a mercenary soldier is captured, he loses. He doesn't have the status of the POW, prisoner of war. So I'm pretty sure this man has gone to war. He has joined Russian forces based on his own discretion, which was not the discretion from the government of India. And moreover, in year 2022, Vladimir Putin issued a presidential decree announcing that anyone can come and fight for Russia as mercenary soldiers. So that was kind of a guarantee issued by the Russian Federation. So they would, they were willing to purchase soldiers for money, mainly from the global south in places like India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, in the context of the South Asia. So my answer for your question is quite clear, that won't lead to any diplomatic implication or diplomatic hullabaloo between India and Russia, or between India and Ukraine. That is for sure.
And building on that, Dr. Amar Singh, can you give us more briefing on the fact that you've mentioned that this is not the first case that a South Asian national was captured in these war fronts, and how might this case of foreign national, especially South Asian, including his claims about unpaid compensation, will this have any influence on upcoming perceptions or the current recruitment of Russian military?
Yeah, notwithstanding the capture, arrest, and the brutal deaths in the war front, the South Asians can't grapple with the Russian or Ukrainian winters for sure. So that is something stands above their perception. But contrary to all these brutalities of the war, still there is a greater demand. I can speak from the Sri Lankan perspective, and we have lost nearly 15 Sri Lankan soldiers in Russian war front, and one was fighting for Ukraine. He was one of our SF, Special Force officers, one of the retired guys, one of the most brilliant soldiers who fought in Sri Lankan civil war. He went and he joined Ukraine, and he died there. And nearly 15 other Sri Lankan soldiers have made ultimate sacrifice in the Russian war front. But still there is a greater demand. I'm not sure about the Indian perspectives, but at least from the Sri Lankan perspective, our Ministry of Defense has clearly made stances and clearly made demands from the retired soldiers to not to go to someone's war. But still the money, right, the financial factor has been quite I would say, lucrative an inspiring factor, issue for these people to go and join Russian forces as mercenary soldiers. Because according to the 2022 the presidential decree issued by Vladimir Putin, it clearly states that those who serve in the Russian war front, in the Ukrainian war, would be even eligible to obtain the Russian citizenship or the permanent residence in Russian Federation. So this is something quite appealing for people in our part of the world. I'm pretty sure you would understand this.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Amarasinghe, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout this news. Thank you. Now we move on. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg alleged on Tuesday that she and other Gaza flotilla detainees were tortured in Israeli prison. At a news conference in Stockholm, Thunberg claimed that they were kidnapped and tortured by Israeli forces, saying she was denied clean water while others lacked critical medication. Israel's foreign ministry has not responded to the claims but has repeatedly denied mistreating detainees. Thunberg was part of the Global Smooth Flotilla, which tried to bring aid to Gaza. She was detained with 478 others and deported on Monday. Israel has dismissed the flotilla as a publicity stunt aiding Hamas. Meanwhile, Irish detainees also reported mistreatment, with one calling the experience sadistic and inhumane. Let's listen into what the activists have said.
Jag blev precis släppt från ett israeliskt tortyrfängelse i öken. Och ärligt talat så vet jag inte riktigt vad jag ska säga. För oavsett vad vi säger så finns det inget som biter. Det finns ingenting som leder till handling från våra regeringar. Trots att under internationell lag de har en rättslig skyldighet att agera för att förhindra och stoppa folkmord. Det som hände var inte bara att Israel kidnappade oss och torterade oss, utan att framförallt under ett pågående eskalerande folkmord där Israel uttalat försöker radera hela Gazaremsan och det palestinska folket, den palestinska nationen. Israel återigen bröt internationell rätt och förhindrade humanitär nödhjälp, mediciner, mat, vatten från att komma in till en svältande befolkning. Men det här har sagts tusentals gånger redan och som sagt, det biter inte.
In the say the 5 or 6 days that we were incarcerated, no access to doctors, no access to medicine, no contact with the outside world, no lawyers, no yard time, and one of our comrades, I don't think he'd mind me saying, a 75-year-old man trying to bring baby formula to a besieged population, was taken out of his prison cell at 2 o'clock in the morning, guns pointed at his head, and all he was asking for was his insulin. They wouldn't give the man insulin for 3 or 4 days. In my opinion, they were very happy to let him die.
Now we move on to North America. President Donald Trump has said that that his administration plans to cut several government's programs due to the ongoing shutdown. He promised details on job cuts within the next 4 to 5 days. The U.S. government shutdown began on October 1st, leaving hundreds of thousands of federal workers either furloughed or working without pay. As the shutdown enters its 7th day, Republicans and Democrats continue to blame each other. House Speaker Mike Johnson has called the situation real pain being felt by real people, caused by political gamesmanship. Meanwhile, Democrat Hakeem Jeffries has blamed President Trump and Republicans for refusing to provide health care to working-class Americans, keeping the government closed. No deal has yet to be reached to end the crisis. Listen into what President Trump has said.
We have a lot, I'm not going to tell you, but we'll be announcing it pretty soon, but we have a lot of things that we're going to eliminate and permanently eliminate. You know, one of the things that we have is some advantage, you could say, but because of the shutdown, which I think they made a big mistake, we're able to take out billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse, and they've handed it, on a silver platter. And you know Russell Vought, he's a serious person, very serious person, and he's sitting there and he's getting ready to cut things. And this is something that was handed to us by, I assume, Schumer. I just don't know if Schumer has any power anymore.
Now we stay in India. United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has touched down in Mumbai, kicking off his first official visit to India. He's leading a record 125-member trade delegation, the largest the UK has ever sent to India. The delegation includes top CEOs, university leaders, and cultural figures. The visit builds on the major UK-India trade deal signed in July, which slashes tariffs and opens access to one of the world's fastest-growing markets. Keir Starmer says this is not just a deal on paper, it's a launch pad for growth. He will meet Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday to boost ties in trade, technology, and security. Big British names like Rolls-Royce, British Airways, and Diageo are on board, along with small businesses aiming to expand in India. The agreement is expected to boost trade by $31 billion a year. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by former Ambassador Suresh Goyal. He's a former Indian diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us. Good morning. Now, how significant is this visit and the fact that he's coming along with a lot of delegates to India?
I would call it politically and economically very, very significant, considering the kind of a situation. If you take the overall global view of the geopolitics, with India and the other countries, Western countries, USA, Europe, it's a clear signal that India does want to go ahead with fast development, growth of relations with the countries in the West, about our own decision-making, strategic autonomy, as we call it, our own interest. That is one, but in terms of details, really speaking, in view of the overall framework, very important because in terms of both trade and economic cooperation, please do remember that he is coming and he will be also attending the Global FinTech Festival in Mumbai, started yesterday. Prime Minister Modi, and he will be talking about trade, FTA, about defense cooperation, strategic partnership, about several other matters will be discussed really in terms of technology, artificial intelligence. So on the whole, I would say extremely important, particularly in view of the details, the granular picture of what we are going to discuss and the overall framework of our desire to expand our relationship.
And
Yes.
Ambassador, from what we know, the report showed that this agreement, UK-India Free Trade Agreement, does not include easing visa access for Indians to UK. What could be the reason behind this, and how do you view his decision to exclude visa provisions from this new UK-India trade agreement?
I think Prime Minister Keir Starmer has indicated in the press discussion that this is not going. The visit also is not going to include any further developments on the visa regime for India, while it will talk about expanding the relationship. Overall, I do not know what his reasons are, because he does indicate in his conversations that he is interested in Indian expertise, Indian professionals working in the United Kingdom. But you know, visa and the immigration into a country are very delicate issues. They involve the whole issue of demographics. They involve the whole issue of political picture, the different groups, lobbies, etc., etc. I will not really, therefore, insist that visa is the most central issue in the relationship. It is important, but if we can develop relations in the other area, I'm sure we will find a way to deal with the visa issue also. But I would not make it really the central issue for the time being.
Although this is not the central issue, Ambassador, I agree with you. A lot of Indian people, Indian expats do go to UK, and now that a H-1B visa has a fee, so they are looking at other countries, especially UK. So how do you see this importance of mobility for Indian professionals, especially in tech and services? How will India address this lack of visa access in future negotiations with the UK?
I know one thing. Migration is not a recent issue. Migration has been taking place for the last 50 years, last 100 years. People have been going from one country to the other country for economic reasons, for political reasons. There are several reasons why people actually migrate. And I also know, because it's my own experience, that those who want to make a different life, better life for themselves, as I see, they often succeed in changing their own environment. Therefore, as I said, those who are not able to go to the USA now, we have enough opportunities in India. In fact, we would welcome their professional expertise in India to develop our own technological base, our own economic strengths, industries. We need to go further ahead in artificial intelligence. Therefore, they will have sufficient opportunities in Bangalore, Hyderabad. I don't think they will be basically deprived of a kind of livelihood they're looking for. If they want to go to Europe, if they want to go to Japan, they can explore opportunities wherever they want to. Europe is not the only place where they need to come. In fact, if I recall correctly, there is a country which is even promised to give without visas, without charges, K visas. So let us see what happens. But as I said, the professionals, if they are not given, if they don't find opportunities in USA, it is not the professionals who will suffer. The USA will be deprived of their professionalism and their expertise. I will just leave it there.
Yes, indeed. And Ambassador, lastly, going back to our previous question, do you think that there can be a chance that Keir Starmer is facing huge political pressure about immigration and from even opposition parties in UK? So do you think these issues back home has affected this political pressure on him, maybe influencing his restrictive stance on immigration and visa policy with India?
I do not want to comment specifically on what is influencing Prime Minister Keir Starmer's mind. It is his own thinking, he will make his own decisions. But in a general way, I can say, and I said it earlier, that the visa and the migration policies are very delicate and very sensitive areas because they impact on the demography, they impact on the politics of the country, voting patterns. We have, in our own country, we have announced that we will not what we call Ghuspaitias, those who have intruded or those intruders into the country to vote in the elections, because we know that they impact on the particular lobbies in the group. Therefore, without commenting on what the internal politics of the UK is, all I can say is that there are several factors which weigh on this decision making. I will respect Prime Minister Keir Starmer's decision. I'm not going to make this as a central issue, whatever it may be, as far as India is concerned. Rest, I think I will leave it to the Prime Minister of UK to take the decision that he thinks is the best.
Thank you very much, Ambassador
Thank
Shirish
you.
Goyal. Thank you for joining us and sharing that insight. Always great hearing from you. Now we move on and we stay in India. According to reports, at least 15 people were killed on late Tuesday when a massive landslide struck a bus in Himachal Pradesh, India. The bus was traveling on a hilly stretch near Bilaspur district when debris from the slide hit, claiming the lives of 9 men, 4 women and 2 children. Authorities have said that 20 to 25 passengers were on board at the time. Rescue teams managed to save 3 injured children who were then taken to local hospital, while search operations continued to locate other missing passengers believed to be dead. Now, Indian President and Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have expressed their condolences. This year, extreme rains have caused flooding and landslides across South Asia, including Nepal, Pakistan, and in Bangladesh. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.